And we have quorum to begin? Okay.
We do, thank you.
I will now call the Executive Committee meeting to order. As a reminder, this meeting is being held as a virtual meeting with members of the committee participating remotely. In addition, the meeting is being streamed live on the TRCA website. Electronic devices which emit a sound should be turned off or otherwise set to vibrate or silent. Please ensure computer, mic, and sound are muted. I want to remind members to please ensure cameras are turned on. The clerk will now conduct attendance and call out the name of each member.
Great, thank you. Damerla? Dyes?
Present.
Thank you. Fletcher has sent regrets. On?
Present.
Thank you. Heath?
I'm here.
Thank you. Hyatt?
Present. Good morning.
Morning. Innes?
Present.
Jackson? Kelleher has sent in regrets, and Peruzza. Thank you.
It's a tight quorum, so nobody go to the bathroom, okay? We respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on traditional territories and treaty lands, in particular those of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, as well as the Anishinaabe of the Williams Treaty First Nation, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis Nation. We are, as stewards of the land and water resources within the Greater Toronto Region, Toronto and Region Conservation Authority appreciates and respects the history and diversity of the land and is grateful to have an opportunity to work and meet in this territory. Are there any members of committee who wish to disclose a pecuniary interest? Seeing or hearing none. I need approval of the minutes of the meeting held on September the 9th. Moved by Vice Chair Heath, seconded by Councillor Dyes. All those in favor? That carries. Under Section 2, items for Executive Committee action, 8.1, application for permit pursuant to Section 28-0-1 of the Conservation of Authorities Act, Minister Zoning Order, Ontario Regulation 345-22. Any holds?
Where are you? Madam Chair, where are you?
I'm starting on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay. I'm not looking at it that way, but I have second. Okay, consent. Good, no problem.
One moment, because maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. September 9th. Just hold 1 second. Okay, it's so we're section 2, 8.1. Are there any holds? That's approved on consent. At section 3, items for information of the board, 9.1, 2022 6-month financial report. Approved on consent. 9.2, green space securement management plan.
9.2. Oh, that one I haven't got. Could give just a brief description. I must not have the update. What is that one?
John?
Sorry, can you say the item again? Sorry, I didn't.
9.2 securement management plan.
Oh, yes. Through the chair, that's the green space. That's our acquisition plan that we're bringing forward for information as to how we're going to proceed to prioritize our acquisition of spaces, either through the development process, through infrastructure processes, and through any available funding that we can apply, you know, either towards the capital projects like trails and everything, but it's really just outlining and prioritizing how we're going to go about doing that based on a methodology.
Oh, somehow I seem to be missing it, but I'll look at it to get to the board.
And there is a presentation on that if necessary, just to a very quick presentation that would help if necessary. Thank you.
Jack, did you want to hold that for the presentation?
No, I think
Okay.
I haven't read it, and I'd like it to, I'll hold it for the presentation at the board, not here.
Okay, sounds good. So no other questions regards to 9.2? Can I have a mover for 8.1, 9.1, and 9.2? Moved by Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Dr. Han. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Closed session items 11.1, Rimsey Holdings Limited update on OLT appeals. Any holds?
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I may, 10.1 to 10.5 as well. The major permit applications.
Yep, it's just one moment. It's not in my. I'm going to use my other device because it's not in my system. So just one second. Because I want to be able to label them all.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I believe 7.1 to 7.5 may have been missed as well, unless we were having technical difficulties on our end.
Okay, can you please hold for 1 second? I'm just going to ask the board to hold for a moment.
Madam Chair, if you'd like, I can also pull it up on the screen so we can share it through WebEx.
Okay, I finally got it. So we'll go back to items under section 1. 7.1, agricultural lease renewal, former Wilson and Spears property.
Madam Chair, I want to hold, I might as well let you know, 7.1, 7.2, 7.4, and 7.6.
Okay. Are there any holds for 7.3? Can I have a mover, please, for 7.3? Moved by Vice Chair Heath, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. All those in favor? That carries. We've done 8.1, 8.9.1, 9.2.
7.5.
7.5, service level agreements for infrastructure planning and permitting plan review services.
No, that's a request for tender for, I think, gravel, tons of gravel or stone.
So I have 7.5, service level agreements for infrastructure planning and permitting plan review services.
Oh, that's the one I held, but that I have it as 7.6. This is really
This is really confusing. You know what? I'm going to ask that we take a 5-minute recess, and I'm going to converse with our clerk because the agendas that I have before me are different than the agendas you have before you. Let's take a moment, and we'll begin with the consent agenda at the beginning. Just 1 moment. Let's take a 5-minute recess. My apologies. Hold.
Yep.
7.3, acquisition from 31, 33, 35, 37, 39, Lakeland Drive, Toronto.
We already adopted that one.
Yep. And then 7.4, TRCA Real Property Portfolio Surplus Land Strategy.
I asked to hold that one.
That was hold. And then 7.5 is service level agreements for infrastructure planning and permitting plan review services.
I'd like to hold that one.
Okay. And then there is no 7.6. So we've moved 7.3. So we'll just continue on to finish with the consent agenda. 8.1 has been done, 9.1 and 9.2. And those have all been approved. And so then we'll move to Section 4, Ontario Regulation 166-06 as amended, major permit application regular for approval. Are there any holds for 10.1 Town of Caledon 13540 Caledon King Town Line Road, South Albion? 10.2 Town of Caledon 9861 Columbia Way, Albion? 10.3 Town of Caledon 13540 Caledon King Town Line Road South, Albion. 10.4 City of Brampton Coleraine Drive and Countryside Drive. 10.5 Standard Delegated Permits for receipt, staff approved and issued. So I need a mover for 10.1 through to 10.5. Moved by Dr. Hahn, seconded by Councillor Dyes. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Under item 11, closed session, 11.1, Rimsey Holding Limited, update on the OLT appeal. Are there any holds?
No.
Okay. I need a mover and a seconder for 11.1. Moved by Vice Chair Heath, seconded by, Clerk Hyde.
Clerk Gies. I'm going to put up through the chair, I'm going to put up the amended resolution for that. That way everybody sees what is being approved, if you don't mind.
Okay. And further, that the following province's decision on the York Region Official Plan Amendment, staff be requested to refer the matter back to the Executive Committee for an update. I do need a mover for the amendment. Councillor Hyatt, and seconded by Vice Chair Heath. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. All those in favor of section item 11.1 as amended? Moved by Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Vice Chair Heath. All those in favor? That's carried. And then we do have a couple of items for new business. So we will go back to item 7.1, agricultural lease renewal, former Wilson and Spears property. And Jack, you had questions regarding that.
Thank you. It's actually both of them together. My first question is, how many are these agricultural leases? They both date back to the 1970s, and one wonders whether or not there are many more. I mean, we got rid of a number when we passed them on to Parks Canada in the east end of Markham and Toronto, and I guess Uxbridge and Pickering. Are there many more?
So through the chair, I will ask Alexander Schuler to speak to that. Alex, do you want to begin? Thank you. Or Alex, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, John. Through the chair, there's approximately 24 leases.
24 approximately, Alexander.
Very close, yes. I think it might be 24.
No, I'm joking on that. It's approximately 25, but there are exactly 24. I looked at them both, Madam Chair, and, you know, we have to pay the taxes on both of them, and I'm sure we have to pay the taxes on most, if not all of them. We have some in Markham like this, and I know them well. And the net for these two properties is $3,700 for the TRCA. The cost of producing these reports has got to exceed that. the cost of actually doing the report and the time and a whole bunch of other things is probably in that range, or a little less, a little bit more. I'll use the word approximately the same as our net revenue. And when you read the let me assure you, TRCA Real Property Portfolio Surplus Land Strategy, which is 7.4, you see no reference whatsoever to tableland agricultural leases. And with climate change and a whole bunch of other things, and thus more issues about erosion here and elsewhere and flooding, one wonders why we don't offer these to the leaseholder and say thank you. This is no longer our business as much as our business as some of the other areas are. Have we ever given any thought to that? Now, I'm not asking Alexander. This time I'm asking John.
So through the chair, some of these properties are, and going back, and I think you're right, there's a legacy of acquisition, and on some of them it's quite the story. But part of it was when the province, even on some of these parcels, when they purchased them, they purchased the whole parcel. So it may have included a great deal of the environmentally sensitive features and functions that would typically be part of that characterization, that these environmentally sensitive areas and the buffers and everything like that we're quite familiar with, and that's all part of the prioritized acquisition strategy. But they had picked up these sometimes with the whole parcel that included some of those tableland farmlands. And so we have that legacy from acquisition, and this map behind me shows a lot of that. And so part of what we've seen though is that on some of these properties, it makes sense to, even though there is this, it's almost a nominal, or it's a lease rate for agriculture, but it's also helpful having eyes on the property to help deal with contingent liabilities and trespass issues, and having some stewards around our holdings helps us do a better job of enforcing what we need to enforce when we need to do that, and to maintaining our properties. So there's some benefit as well, but it's all part of our larger program, and it's also an opportunity, if we're successful on some of these sites, where it makes sense, and it doesn't always make sense. Maybe it makes sense to continue farming on some of them, but there's sometimes restoration opportunities that we've identified, and subject and pending funding, we can do some additional restoration work. For example, field habitat, bird issues and things like that weren't as prevalent. The risk and the pressures facing some of those species wasn't the same 20 years ago. It's worse now. And so there may be restoration opportunities on some of those habitats that are currently in production. So there's a whole number of reasons that we're looking at this, and I'll let Alexander add to that. Go ahead, Alex.
Thanks, John. Yeah, and I just wanted to add, earlier this year, we came forward with a report on the updated agricultural land use policy. Just that kind of spoke to what John was mentioning, how we wanted to kind of codify TRCA's commitment to agricultural operations, and kind of, identify these uses as, part of our portfolio, and as a part of our long-term, I'll say, land use strategy. And to your point, Councillor, about the rates, we are constantly examining that, and we are, as part of the program, going to be looking at fair market value rates, potentially in certain circumstances. So we are undergoing that process as well, which should be completed prior to end of year.
Well, have we not done that before, Alexander? Fair market rates, or are we just doing another look at what the rate is? It should be today or next year, let's say.
I don't believe it's been appraised according to fair market rates prior to. I've only been with the organization for just over a year. I don't believe that did occur, Councillor.
Well, I know they're doing it in Rouge National Urban Park, looking at agricultural leases in south central Ontario and trying to do comparisons and saying, well, this is, per hectare, this is a, something a 50 or 100 hectare parcel, a fair market rate in our area would be X, and they're trying to work towards that. And I think that should be, you should be talking to them at least. The other thing is, if we're going to do all what John outlined and what you've outlined, etc., at least we shouldn't be bringing in single reports for a single lease. We probably should bring in once a year. And here are the 24 Alex properties. And maybe it has to be confidential. I don't know. But here are the 24, one approval for that, so that we're not producing one-off reports all the time. That's what got me going on this one. I said, geez, the second one is there's a net value of $1,000. If let us say the net value on all of them is an average of $2,000, well, that's $48,000. It costs more just for the staffer to produce that report. So are the 24 reports. Well, that would be my only recommendation then. And it would create opportunities for further discussions at the time, sort of that we are at least getting a good revenue and not spending as much as we might be spending in order to do more of what John's talking about and to do less administration. That would be my recommendation, Madam Chair.
And through the chair, I think we can take that as staff direction, Chair Innes, if that's something that Vice Chair Heath, we can look at that and see if there's an opportunity to bundle some of these going forward. I know that traditionally we've done it property by property, but I think we can go back and look at that as staff as we put the agendas together. If there's an opportunity to bundle some of these to find some efficiencies, we can look at that. There is some challenges with if there's differing terms, but if we can find some synergies and opportunities to bundle some of that, recognizing the point about efficiencies and reporting, we'll look at that and we'll have a discussion on that. So we can take that as direction, staff direction, without, I don't think we need a resolution. We'll try to work that through in our agenda review process. Nobody's
going to disapprove of these, like one-off versus, an annual report where here's what we're doing, and this, this one has got a 2-year lease, et cetera, and here's the other variables, et cetera. Nobody's going to disapprove of us going forward. At that time, I would be most surprised. And I just think it would be more beneficial for the organization. I guess maybe, Madam Chair, my apologies. I've been watching 2 or 3 programs recently on climate change and the impact in Canada, let alone in some of the other places. And I'm turning around and say, oh my God, how much money is this going to cost? Where are we going to come up with the money? So, that's why I raised this subject. So I'll move both of them, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I think just a follow-up point, it is nice to have them all bundled together to create efficiencies. But in regards to the comment about fair market value, it's very difficult to put a market value on a piece of agricultural land that is landlocked, that must be maintained. And I know of a few in Caledon in particular, where the only access to it is through another farm. And those lands could and should continue to be in farm production. And so that creates a little bit of a challenge and a different aspect and compared to the other pieces of agricultural properties that we're releasing. And again, I know Jack and I have both mentioned this in previous meetings, just even the length of the leases tends to be a bit of always an issue with the agricultural community because they plan their crops based on what was planted in the previous year, what the soil is going to need to replenish it to grow something in the next year. And crop rotation is a very big part of their science of keeping the land healthy and productive. So, lease renewals less than 5 years is a challenge and continues to be a challenge for agricultural community. So just to keep that in mind when we're having those discussions, but I do like the idea of bundling it and trying to create some efficiencies on the administrative side of it. So thank you, Jack, for bringing that up.
The other matter, and I'm glad you brought up the 1-year leases, Madam Chair, is that 1-year leases You've talked very well about how difficult it is for the leaseholder, the farmer, but 1-year leases requires a lot of admin work for us. And given how much money net revenue would, one wonders whether or not we should be trying anyways, just for ourselves, let alone the farmer, to get a little bit longer so we don't have to deal with them every year. Um, I'll leave that with John and Alex to work it through. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's 7.1 and 7.2, moved by Vice Chair Heath, seconded by Councillor Dyes. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
I'm in favor.
The next item that you had held was 7.4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I dealt with one of them. I just dealt with the agricultural leases, and of course these are property that we hold. And I went through this, and I didn't see much reference to agricultural leases in here, and I made my point previously. We talked about, I guess, at the last executive. I'm glad Alex is still on the screen, and I'm hoping he's enjoying. He mentioned 1 year. I hope he's enjoying working for TRCA, because I think it's a great organization. Thumbs up. That's good. Then he'll recall that we talked about encroachments and heritage leases, and I don't mean old buildings. I mean leases from the 60s and 70s at the last executive meeting and at the board. And I assume that somehow, as we work through the portfolio surplus land strategy, one wonders whether or not some of these might show up as surplus or some, some aspect of surplus. All I know is that, when you've been around as long as I have, and John, we have a much younger and less lengthy term in our chair, Councillor Innes, but when you see things change, and you can those heritage encroachment leases and things like that from the 60s, 70s, in some cases the agricultural leases, that you might not do it today. You see that even in my length of time here. One wonders whether or not that kind of stuff is going to be part of this discussion, Alex, whether or not those things will show up in here as well.
Through the chair, yes, Jack, I think everything's in scope. Obviously, it's pretty prescriptive, the policy, in terms of what we would rule in versus out versus surplus kind of thing. But leases where, after we would check if they have, for instance, like identified municipal use, or they may be very important to the community, et cetera. Once we were to go through all that process and vet it, then we kind of make a determination on if, there is a surplus opportunity as well. If that's kind of what you were getting at, Councillor.
Yeah, and there'll be a full report at some point in time. I might not be here on those kinds of older leases, and a full report on the agricultural leases sometime in the future as well, because they'll pop up once a year or whatever. I think that it's very important, and I just see, and I heard what John had to say, and I heard what you had to say. I remain, I don't want to use the word adamant, but I remain in the position that I think, because of the issues of climate change and the newer and more important role the TRCA has in that a slight change in direction in this area probably is an impact of the climate change, getting us more. I don't like the word core. It's used by Queen's Park, and the chair has had to use that, having dealt with the new changes and the new policies. But nevertheless, I think some changes were probably required down the road to more concentration in the areas of our responsibilities, as we can see them becoming more difficult in the future. Anyway, that would be my comment. Madam Chair, I'd move it.
Thank you. Can I get are there any other comments? Seconded by Dr. Han. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. 7.5, service level agreements for infrastructure planning and permitting plan review services.
And that was me as well. And this is questions to Samir. and I read it and we are making progress on page 2 and 3. There's reference to progress with Metrolinx, an SLA agreement sometime this fall. I remind them that we only have 2 months to go, Samir, before the late December, end of the fall, and some others. The question I had, though, Samir, is where, did we have any failures over the past year, or should there be any reference whatsoever to some things where we haven't been as successful? I know that in this area in the past we've had some issues about not being able to persuade somebody to do such an agreement, an SLA, and where are we on that?
Oh, thank you, through the chair. So to the second question about working with, I believe you're referencing working with the Ministry of Transportation. That was the GTA West project, also referred to as Highway 413. We're currently working with the province. We're developing the work plan. We haven't received any new materials, but they have committed to undertake a voluntary project review with TRCA. So that's going well. And in terms of failures, I think this is a great example of how partnerships work, and we're working extremely well with our partners at the province and all these various agencies. Sometimes projects are fast-tracked. I know with Metrolinx, they try their hardest to work with us and get voluntary project reviews for most of their projects. It's not 100% of the projects right now, so that may be something that we need to work on to get it up to that 100% level.
Well, yes, and I read them all. That's all I wanted to make sure is that this is basically is annual, I think, Samir, is not? You're thinking of this thing as this SLA update is annual.
Yep, that's correct.
That's right. Well, then I would say the next one, I would like a little bit more of where we're still being challenged. Where the next one here. Well, here's where we've done this, and this. We're still being challenged. So that really, in effect, this is an SLA update annual, and where there are still some challenges. I don't think we should leave that aside. I think we should say, I think it's very beneficial to use it here in the TRCA as a whole. Oh yeah, well, we're going to mention this. We're not just putting our successes in here, and you better be aware that this is a public document. And paragraph 14 is going to outline where our challenges are, and your name is going to be in there. I think that's very, very helpful for you down the road, and for all of us. Anyway, thank you, Madam Chair. It's a good report. Thank you.
Any other comments in regards to item 7.5? Moved by Vice Chair Heath, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. So we'll move to items of new business, and we're going to do this at our AGM, but I did want to acknowledge that this will be one of the last TRCA Executive Committee meetings for this term. And I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize some of our appointee members who we know are not seeking re-election in their respective municipalities. Councillor Mike Layton, who isn't on with us this morning, was appointed in December 2018 as the City of Toronto representative, serving for 3 years in this term. Councillor Gord Hylett was appointed to the TRCA board on December 2019 as the Durham Region representative and received his 3-year service recognition this year. And also, Councillor Hylett is a member of our TRCA Executive Committee. Thank you, Gord, for all of your help and effort. It's been a pleasure working and serving with you on the executive and the committee. And also wanted to say, Vice Chair Jack Heath was appointed to the board in December 2006 and has served 15 years on TRCA's board of directors. And so a very, very big thank you, Jack. That's a long-term commitment to the board and to the organization and all of the work. That's a lot of corporate memory that we're going to lose in the next term of this board. So a very big thank you. And even though you're not running, I know you're always going to be a phone call away, because I know your heart still belongs with the TRCA. So a very, very big thank you. And obviously we'll do something at our AGM to honor all of you for all of your contributions. But just wanted to acknowledge it amongst the executive members here today.
Well, you raise a question, and Gord's here, and Gord's done a great job. I've actually really learned a lot from Gord. We needed we really need someone on the TRCA from his area. I mean, I think it's very important. My understanding, Madam Chair, is that we're on until we're replaced. And so, for example, I don't believe York Region will have any replacements in December. If we had a meeting in early January, which is quite amazing that we don't, it's one of the first times I recall, I think I'm still here. And I think Gord's still here until he's replaced. Maybe.
You're here until the AGM, which I think is scheduled, and Joanne can confirm, for the end of January or the beginning of February. Joanne?
Sure, thank you. Through Madam Chair, the AGM is scheduled for January 13th, so it is quite early, and it is scheduled that way because it is the year after the election. So we are anticipating that all of our municipal partners will be able to provide us with the new term appointments by December, and the reason everything has been moved up ahead is because of the change in the Municipal Elections Act, with the inaugural being so much earlier than it was in previous years.
Okay, good. And we're hoping.
And the reason why I said this may be our last executive meeting is because I may have to call one, in which case you're still on.
Madam, I comment on one other who has been an excellent member of this board over, I think it's 8 years. I'm not sure. I don't have a clerk to look up the dates, but that person is up running an election, and I'm certainly hoping that she is successful. That's you, Madam Chair. Therefore, you could be back. You will be back. But certainly I can't speak for anyone else, but I can wish you well in your election, so that if the region appeal wants to replace somebody, they're going to have to replace a sitting councillor or sitting mayor. I'm certainly, I think I express it for everybody. I'm hoping you're back.
Thank you, Jack. I hope so too. That's the plan. Thank you, everyone. And with that, I guess we'll end here, and we will be back at 10:30 for the hearing, and commencing at that time. So a mover to adjourn, moved by Vice Chair Heath,